I never imagined losing my job for refusing to compromise safety over profits. It was a stormy Tuesday. The clouds darkened the sky, just like my heart felt that day. I will never forget the moment they called me in. My stomach twisted, a tight knot of dread hardening in my gut. My supervisor's eyes were cold, his voice even colder. "We need to make cuts," he said, the words slicing through me like a blade. I stood there, trembling hands gripping the edge of the table. Thoughts raced. Every project I poured my heart into, every late night spent reviewing safety protocols, all for nothing. My mind flickered through memories of my late father, a mechanic who valued humanity above all. He taught me that lives are priceless, not just numbers on a ledger. But here I was. They wanted me to ignore the risks. Hands overflowing with profits, eyes blind to the dangers lurking in the shadows of our factories. I felt sick, a lump rising in my throat. I could see the figures on the budget sheets clearly, a cascade of red ink against the potential savings of cheap labor. It gnawed at me, the silence of my coworkers fading into the background. Suddenly, the room felt too small, as if the walls were collapsing around me. I saw them glance at each other, concerned, confused faces, the air thick with unspoken words. But I wouldn't budge. I couldn't look the other way. Their murmurs filled the void, whispers of disbelief and fear swirling like autumn leaves caught in a gust. "You're a fool," one said. "You'll ruin us." Another hissed. "Safety is not negotiable," I declared, voice tremulous yet resolute. I watched the surprise flicker in their eyes. And then nothing. Just silence. It's as if time stopped. Would they stand with me, or would they choose profits over ethics? The thought suffocated me, a lid clamped down tight over my soul. I felt a distance growing, the warmth of my workplace turning frigid in an instant. I took a deep breath, heart thudding loud, each beat echoing my decision. I expected a fight, but what came next shocked me to my core. "You're fired," he said, with a finality that resonated like a death knell. The word hung in the air, a heavy weight that pressed down on my chest. I stumbled backward, the floor beneath me almost giving way. How could this happen? My mind screamed in disbelief while my body went numb. With the door closing behind me, I felt the cold wind swirl around me. This was real. This was my life, shattered like glass. I stumbled down the street, tears blurring my vision. The pavement was hard, unchanged, and yet everything felt different. Who was I now without that job? But amidst the chaos, hope flickered. There was a chance. I could start over. I could fight back. Yet, as I looked up and saw the looming factory, I couldn't shake a feeling of dread. What would happen to those still inside? The mystery weighed heavy on me. Secrets lurked behind those walls. Could lives be at risk? Would my decision lead me down a path of uncovering something dark and buried? The urgency gripped me tight, and I knew this wasn't the end. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The drive home felt like navigating through a fog. Heavy raindrops began to pelt the windshield, rhythmically tapping a sorrowful beat that mirrored my heart. Each splash of water against the glass filled my mind with thoughts spiraling out of control. I replayed my supervisor's words over and over, "You're fired." It felt less like a job loss and more like a betrayal, not just by the company but by a world that seemed to elevate profit over human life. I pulled into the driveway, fog clinging to everything like a shroud. The familiar sight of my tiny home became a refuge, but it was tainted with the shadows of uncertainty. My father's old tool chest sat in the garage, its rusted glitter a testament to the countless repairs he made, to the pride he took in knowing he kept people safe. As I stepped inside, only the hum of the refrigerator greeted me, a stark reminder of the silence I had just left behind. I sank onto the couch, the cushions enveloping me like a heavy quilt, but it offered little comfort against the churning storm of emotions within. What would my father think? I had always aimed to honor his legacy, to carry on his values of integrity and safety. If he were here, he would tell me that doing the right thing wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. I closed my eyes, imagining his gentle smile, the words swirling in my mind like whispers from the past. Just then, my phone buzzed, an unexpected bright light piercing through the gloom. It was a message from Maya, a colleague who had worked alongside me for years. "Are you okay? Heard about what happened?" Her concern radiated through the screen like a lifeline. It was comforting to know someone out there cared. That I hesitated but decided to respond. "Not really. Just trying to process everything." The reply came swiftly. "Meet me at the cafe down the street. I think I have some valuable info that can help." Curiosity, laced with hope, sparked within me. I wished for a moment that I could turn away from this turmoil, but the thought of possibly exposing what lurked behind those factory walls was too compelling. I nodded to myself, gathering the scattered pieces of resolve. The cafe was only a few blocks away. As I made my way there, the rain subsided to a gentle drizzle. I could feel the weight lifting slightly, as if the universe was giving me a fleeting moment of clarity. Arriving at the cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee intertwined with warm pastries brought a sense of normalcy. I spotted Maya nestled in a corner, her expression a mixture of concern and determination. "Thank you for coming," she said, as soon as our eyes met, urgency threading through her tone. "I wanted to talk to you about what's really happening at the factory." The tension in her voice set my heart racing. "What do you know?" She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I've seen the safety reports. The company's cutting corners. They're using outdated equipment, and there have been several near misses that they never reported." My heart sank, dread washed over me. But if that's true, lives could be in danger. Maya nodded, biting her lip. "That's why I reached out. I know we can't let it continue. We might be able to expose them." "Could we?" The thought ignited a flicker of hope and terror in equal measure. Taking a deep breath, I felt the adrenaline pulsating through me. This could be the avenue I needed to take my stand, not just for myself but for those still within those dangerous walls. But just as my mind began to weave possibilities, Maya glanced over my shoulder, and her eyes widened in alarm. "Oh no, I think someone is watching us." My heart raced again as I turned around, the weightless feeling vanishing in an instant. In the doorway stood a figure I recognized, dressed in a dark coat, watching us with an intense gaze. The weight of unspoken threats loomed in the air, the walls of the cafe began to feel constricting, and I could see the floor under my feet shifting, as if the ground itself was warning me. Fear surged in my chest, mingling with a new determination. I was in deeper than I had anticipated, and my fight for safety was about to transform into something much more dangerous. "Who is that?" I whispered to Maya, anxiety spiraling. "I have no idea," she replied, her breath a shaky whisper. "But I think we need to leave." But before I could move, the figure stepped forward, bearing a haunting familiarity. A jagged smile painted across his face. The air grew thick with tension as he locked eyes with me, a chilling sense of foreboding settling in my stomach. Why was he here? What did he want? The cafe felt like a shrinking cage as I sat frozen, heart hammering in my chest. The moment that man stepped into view, recognition came crashing down like a wave, pulling me into a tidal pool of anxiety. He was a higher-up from the factory, someone whose gaze was often accompanied by the scent of conformity and indifference. Just the sight of him made my stomach churn. "What do you want?" I managed to croak out, even as my voice trembled against the weight of dread. I was acutely aware of his icy demeanor, the way he seemed to absorb the warmth of the cafe as he advanced toward us. His smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I was just in the neighborhood," he said, his tone casual, too casual. "Thought I'd see how my employees were holding up after recent events." Maya and I exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing between us. The sense of safety we had found in our corner was slipping away, and I felt the overwhelming urge to retreat, to protect not just my future but Maya's as well. "Everything's fine," I forced out, the word feeling foreign on my tongue, draped in insincerity. "We were just catching up." "Catching up," he echoed, his voice smooth like molasses, thick and challenging. "Is that what the kids are calling it these days?" He leaned closer, his eyes narrowing ever so slightly. "You know, it wouldn't be wise for you to stir the pot right now. Some things are better left unsaid." A stab of anger ignited within me, fueled by the knowledge of what was at stake. Did he really think he could intimidate me into silence? I'd already lost so much, I wasn't going to lose my integrity, too. But the terror I felt for modifying the truth morphed into palpable fear for Maya, who lay vulnerable beside me. "We'll be okay," Maya muttered, almost as if trying to convince both of us, though her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. With his gaze still locked onto my face, the higher-up's smile didn't waver. "I'd hate to see that happen to you too. My advice? Stay away from matters that don't concern you. You don't want to know what I'm capable of when provoked." His threat hung in the air like a dark cloud looming over us, swallowing the laughter and chatter of the cafe around us. I felt small, a sea of doubt rising in my chest, fighting against the growing resolve deep inside me. Just then, my phone buzzed again, a sound both intrusive and welcome. I hastily glanced down to see a text from my brother, Leo, the only other person I confided in about my layoff and all the whispers of corruption creeping up at the factory. The message read, "We need to talk. Urgent." "Excuse me," I managed to say, meeting Maya's eyes one last time before I stood, planning to escape the shadow looming over us, but my body felt heavy, like I was wading through molasses. "I need to take this call." The man raised an eyebrow, his attention now shifting fully towards me. "Interesting timing, don't you think?" Ignoring the weight of his words, I stepped outside onto the small patio, where the sound of rain had returned, drizzling softly, the scent of damp earth awakening my senses. Heart racing, I hit call on my brother's number. "Hey, Leo," I breathed, hoping to drown out the fear pounding in my ears. "What's up?" "Listen, I don't know how to say this, but I think I saw something. Something about the factory. It might be related to what's been happening. There are things I can't shake off." My mind raced. What could he possibly have seen? "What do you mean?" "Just meet me tonight at the park near the old fountain." His voice was grave, and every syllable felt loaded with urgency. Just then, the cafe door swung open behind me, and I turned instinctively, catching sight of the man staring now from the inside, a predatory glint in his eyes. "I can't talk right now," I whispered into the phone, knowing he was keying into every word. "Just meet me, please." "Is everything okay?" Leo pressed. I could hear his concern even from miles away. "Not really, but I need you to trust me." He paused, and I could almost hear him weigh the options. "Okay, I'll be there, but be careful. I'll text you when I'm close." "I will," I said, my voice trembling slightly, thankfully hidden by the rain. As I hung up, I felt that familiar mixture of hope and dread swirling within me as my eyes met the man's again. He was stepping outside, a menacing aura trailing in his wake. Each step felt like a beat of war drums echoing ahead for the battle that was now unfolding. "The clock's ticking," I murmured to myself, anxiety slicing through the thick air. I needed to leave. I needed to fight. But how could I do it without putting Maya or myself at risk? The man approached directly, his features sharp in the dim lighting. "I strongly advise you not to pursue matters you don't fully understand. Believe me, it's for the best." But with Leo's cryptic urgency and Maya waiting for me inside, uncertainty gnawed at my resolve, pushing me toward a dramatic choice. I could either walk away and tuck my fears beneath layers of ignorance, or I could make my stand tonight and confront whatever shadows lurked around those factory walls, risking everything I'd ever fought for. But with every heartbeat, I braced myself for what awaited me, the chill of impending confrontation settling in. Tension thickened in the air, the stakes heightened beyond just a job loss now. It was about safety, truth, and unearthing a horror that seemed larger than life. Just as my feet found their direction back inside, I heard one final whisper before I stepped back through the cafe door, a voice echoing a terrible warning only I seemed to register. Have you ever considered what price the truth might cost? And with that, my world shifted, teetering on the edge of an unseen abyss where every decision could change everything forever. The air inside the cafe was fraught with an unsettling mix of dread and unspoken fury as I returned from the patio. My heart beat in tandem with the unsettling rhythm of uncertainty. Maya was still seated at our table, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her coffee cup, her eyes reflecting my own turmoil as they glazed over the room. We exchanged silent glances filled with questions neither of us dared to voice. The man had stolen our moment of tranquility, and now a new kind of panic settled deep within me. My gaze flitted back toward the entrance as if the man might still be lurking just outside, waiting for the opportunity to pounce. He was too close, too calculating. I couldn't allow him to gain any more power over my life or decisions. Maya, I finally managed, voice low but urgent, I need to tell you something. I hesitated, the words caught in my throat. What is it? She asked, her brow furrowed with concern. You look intense. It's about the factory. Leo, he thinks he saw something. I need to meet him tonight. At the park. The revelation felt like a weight pressing down on me, as though sharing it risked tampering with the precarious peace we had forged. You're serious? Her voice trembled lightly. She understood the potential danger. In this climate? With everything that has been going on? I know it sounds reckless, but I need to know what he saw. It could be important. She looked over at the man who now remained fixed inside the cafe, his posture relaxed, all too confident. Please don't go. It's not safe when he's involved. What if he follows you? I paused, my mind racing through the endless possibilities of what could happen next. But what option did I really have? My instincts urged me to dig deeper, but so too did my desire to keep Maya safe. If I don't find out, he wins. I can't allow that to happen. Maya sighed heavily, her eyes filled with concern. You might be right, but you need to promise me you won't do anything stupid. We can't risk getting on his wrong side, and if we don't act, we'll always remain sitting ducks. My words came out sharper than intended, but I could sense myself straying further down the road of panic, wrestling between trusting my instincts and protecting everyone I loved. She let out a slow breath, her shoulders relaxing just a fraction. Okay. But at least let me say I'll come with you. I can't put you in danger, Maya. Do you really think I'm going to let you face whatever is coming alone? We've made it this far together. Her resolve resonated deeply within me. I knew the odds, yet her presence offered a small flicker of hope amidst a growing storm. Fine, I relented, we'll go together. But we stick to the plan. We're vigilant, no heroics. As we stood to leave, a part of me began to question the seriousness of our next steps. Together, we pushed through the cafe door, leaving behind the echo of a possible reckoning. The rain had lightened to a soft drizzle, painting the streets with reflections of yellow lamplight. In the distance, I caught sight of a faint silhouette, my heart racing in acknowledgement that Leo had arrived early. The park was quiet, but its serenity felt poised, like a predator waiting in the shadows. Approaching the fountain, I glanced around. Trees loomed overhead, their branches swaying gently as if whispering secrets to the darkening sky. I shivered, a new kind of apprehension clawing at my chest. Is that him? Maya whispered, clearly on edge as she tightened her grip on my hand. Yeah, I confirmed as we drew closer. Leo stood at the fountain, scanning the surroundings nervously, his face shadowed and worried. Hey, you're here. Good. His tone was low, almost frantic. As we reached him, I could see his hands were tremulous. "What did you see?" I pressed, urgency bubbling in my voice that he glanced around, drawing us closer before speaking. "Earlier this week, I was on the late shift and I noticed something strange. There's been an uptick in shipments. I overheard some conversations in the break room, and I think they're hiding something serious violations." "What kind of violations?" My heart raced as pieces of our fears started to interlace into a more concrete picture of danger. "It's about the safety protocols there." His voice caught, a moment's hesitation hanging in the air before a sudden wave of determination washed over him. "They're cutting corners, Julia. I saw crates being loaded up with materials that shouldn't be used in production. They're putting lives at risk to save money." Nausea swirled in my stomach. "That can't be true. Do you have proof?" "Not yet," he said, frustration cleaving through his words. "But I'm planning to grab a part of it this week. We need something concrete, a solid piece of evidence. Then we'll need to be careful." I spoke with a fierce gaze, and for a brief moment, our thoughts melded into silent agreement. The fight had only just begun, and it would demand everything we had. But even as my heart raced with a powerful surge of adrenaline, our conversation was suddenly interrupted by a chilling sound, a low growl of an engine revving, harsh light piercing the darkness as a car pulled up beside us. The door swung open, and that same man stepped out, a ferocious smirk plastered across his face, illuminated by the headlights. "Seems I caught you in quite the discussion," he said, a mocking tone weaving through his words. "I warned you to stay away from matters that don't concern you." Panic shot through my veins, and I instinctively moved in front of Maya, my heart racing not just from fear but from an overpowering urge to defend. This was not just about a job anymore, it was a battle for the truth, for our lives, and perhaps even for the lives of others depending on us. "Step away from them," Leo's voice cut through the tension, shaky but imbued with a surprising bravado. The man, amusement dancing in his eyes, took a single step closer, darkness radiating from him. "You certainly have no idea of the danger you're in, do you?" And just when I thought he would reveal his intent, a sharp, chaotic sound erupted from the direction of the factory, metal clanging, alarms blaring. Before any of us could register the threat looming before us, I met Maya's frightened eyes once more. Something had been set in motion, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we had just crossed an irreversible line. In that instant, uncertainty loomed again with the weight of truth, destiny, and danger breathing down our necks, and then, in the blink of an eye, everything could change. The tension hung thick in the air, palpable and oppressive as I stared down the man who had disrupted our small hope of uncovering the truth. His smirk was a haunting reminder of the peril that had woven itself into the fabric of our lives, a cruel taunt that hung over us like an executioner's noose. "What do you want?" I demanded, my voice edged with defiance, masking the tremor of fear that threatened to betray me. Behind me, I could sense Maya's body bracing, her grip tightening around my arm as the rattle of the alarms from the factory blared through the stillness, a chaotic symphony of impending dread. "Just a friendly reminder that some things are better left alone," the man said smoothly, as if we were mere children straying too far from the path. His eyes scanned us, first Leo, then Maya, a cold arrogance glinting in his gaze. "You've meddled enough for one night. I suggest you turn back while you can." "We're not afraid of you," Leo shot back, stepping beside me, his voice trembling only slightly but growing louder with each word. "What you're doing is wrong. You can't intimidate us into silence." To my surprise, Leo's bravery ignited a flicker of courage within me, an ember of revolt against the oppressive darkness trying to engulf us. I cleared my throat, longing to find my own footing amidst the onslaught of vulnerability we were experiencing. "You can't threaten us into submission. We know what you're hiding, and we're not backing down." The man's expression momentarily shifted from amused to burdened with anger, the edges of his mouth tightening as he stepped forward. "You think you're making a bold statement, but let us not kid ourselves. You're players in a game far beyond your comprehension." The words hung like a pendulum, swaying slowly between menacing and foreboding. I exchanged a glance with Maya, her eyes wide with both fear and determination, filled with the resolve that had brought us together in this fight. We were no longer nameless figures in a faceless organization, we were people with lives, duties, and hope to cling to. "Julia, there's the car." Maya suddenly gasped, snapping me back to reality as the engine revved menacingly behind the man. Nervously, I turned to see another vehicle creeping into our line of sight, dark and heavy, its presence an unwelcome shadow. Before I could react, the man turned, addressing the approaching vehicle with an almost unsettling calmness. "Looks like your little team has more surprises than I gave you credit for. But trust me, it won't matter." As the car doors swung open, a figure stepped out, cloaked in darkness, the unmistakable outline of Watcher, the foreman known for his ruthless grip over the workers. His arrival felt like a portent of doom, bringing with it a surge of potent intimidation that silenced the night. "You should all be careful where you tread," the Watcher warned, his voice deep and gravelly, the weight of authority nearly palpable. "The factory has a history of devouring those who go snooping. You may find yourselves lost in its depths, never to emerge." The thrumming of my heart echoed in my ears as I felt the fear wrapping around my throat like a vice. This was not just a warning, it was a threat underscored by the chilling certainty of brutality. But instead of despair, an unexpected flicker of outrage ignited a fire deep within me. "That's why we're here, to bring the truth to light," I declared, my voice steady despite the tremors running through my limbs. "We will expose what's happening, no matter the cost." Maya nodded in agreement beside me, mirrored confidence radiating from her eyes, igniting a sensation of shared strength. The Watcher's brow arched, a subtle sign of interest, but his lips curled into a patronizing smile. "Truth? Look around you. This world thrives on lies, little girl. If you think bringing the truth to light is going to change anything, think again." With that, the chill in the air intensified, sending icy fingers running down my spine. I desperately thought of our limited options, scanning the faces around me, trying to determine our next move, but then the chaos erupted like a violent storm. Suddenly, the factory's alarm intensified, a chorus of chaos vibrating through the night, drowning out not only our voices but any thoughts that lingered unreasoned. I saw flames, flickering faintly at first, within the confines of the factory's open doors, and my stomach dropped in horror. "Run!" I screamed, unaware if it was directed at Maya, Leo, or any shred of hope still tangible in that moment. It was instinct, the fight for intention entwined with the primal urge to survive. Our feet hit the pavement, a flurry of adrenaline pushing us into motion as we dashed toward the nearest cover. The figures behind us shouted, angry and frantic, the words lost in the cacophony of fire, fear, and the uncertain echoes of our intentions. Just as I felt the weight of the world pressing against my back, a horrifying realization sunk in. Was this fire their means of distraction? Were we now trapped in a web spun by the very people we sought to fight against? Maya stumbled, and I turned back instinctively, catching her hand and together forging ahead. Through the mayhem, amidst the jeopardy of uncertainty, I sensed a churn of something far more desperate than fear, the unmistakable pangs of betrayal laced with the bitter taste of loss and purpose, creating a storm of conflict that would need to be reckoned with. As we hurtled forward into the chaos, a cry both haunting and desperate erupted behind us, a voice I recognized through the haze of alarm, shattering the frantic reality with a raw echo of tragedy, before everything began to spin out of control. "Julia! Help!" The chaos enveloped us like a suffocating shroud of darkness, leaving behind only the urgent question that flickered like the flames licking at the horizon: would we be able to save ourselves and those we loved before it was too late? And before I could look back, that terrifying uncertainty became our new reality. Amidst the chaos of blaring alarms and billowing smoke, I felt the world around me fracture into small, disjointed pieces. The haunting sound of that desperate cry echoed in my mind, drowning out everything else: the fire, the fear, the encroaching shadows. My heart was a wild drum, beating against my ribcage, urging me to act, to respond. "Julia!" The voice pierced through the smoke, laced with pain and urgency. I turned, instinctively urging Maya to stay close, heart racing as I faced the conflagration. A dark silhouette was emerging from the flames, and panic seized me as I realized it was Leo. "Get down!" I shouted, but as I moved towards him, the ground beneath my feet shifted. A sudden wave of heat whirled through the air, sending a nauseating tumble of dread through my chest. "Help!" he cried again, struggling against the weight of debris that had fallen close to him. I could see the fear in his eyes, mirroring the whirlwind of thoughts racing through my mind. We hadn't come this far to lose anyone, not now, not after everything we had endured. Maya gripped my arm, her face torn between fear and determination. "We have to get him out." With each step closer, the heat wrapped around me like a living entity, fierce and consuming. Shadows flitted at the edges of my vision as I darted between flaming wreckage, my instincts overriding the sense of self-preservation that whispered for me to turn away. I reached Leo, who was pinned beneath a twisted beam, his face slick with sweat and narrow with pain. "Stay still," I urged, kneeling beside him and urgently assessing the debris. I could hear the distant pops and crackles of the flames, a sinister reminder that time was not on our side. "Julia, I can't, it's too heavy." His voice cracked as he struggled against the weight, panic surging in his eyes that I clenched my jaw. "I'll get you out, just hold on." With all my strength, I gripped the edge of the beam and pulled. It scraped against the ground, sending a shock of pain through my arms as I gritted my teeth, focusing on Leo's frightened face. I could already feel the heat consuming my surroundings, yet I was fueled by an unyielding determination to save him. Suddenly, a hand joined mine, rough and familiar. Maya was there, pulling alongside me. "Together," she urged, her face set in grim determination. With our combined effort, we lifted the beam just enough for Leo to wriggle free. He released a pained gasp, collapsing onto the ground, pale and shaken. We crouched over him, breaths mingling with the ash in the air, fear palpable in the small space between us. "Good job," Maya exclaimed, relief flooding her expression for a brief moment before the flames roared louder, pushing us back. "We need to move, now." We helped Leo to his feet, his weight leaning heavily against us as we stumbled towards the shattered exterior of the factory, the thudding of my heart matched by the fire raging behind us. Each step felt daunting, but never did the thought of leaving him behind cross my mind. We were a chain, linked by desperation and a fragile thread of hope. As we made it closer to safety, the path grew obstructed by bits of debris, smoke enveloped us like a nightmare. Suddenly, from the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a shadow moving in the haze. I turned my head, squinting toward its direction, my heart sinking as the outline of the man who had confronted us earlier emerged from the gloom unscathed. "You really shouldn't have interfered," he said, his tone mocking as he stepped closer, flames casting sinister shadows across his features. "You have no idea what you're getting yourselves into. You think you can save him? You think you can save yourselves?" Just as I opened my mouth to respond, the ground trembled violently beneath us, the factory groaning as structural weaknesses revealed themselves. Instinct kicked in, and I grabbed Maya and pulled her close, guiding Leo to keep moving. But the man's eyes danced with that same chilling arrogance, and I could see that he relished our plight. "You're all going to regret this," he taunted, as the flames roared higher, spewing embers into the night air. With one final push, we stumbled out into the cool night, away from the chaos and into the uncertain embrace of the outside world, but it wasn't the relief I sought. I glanced back, seeing the factory erupting in flames behind us, and for an unbearable moment, I felt a sense of loss. There was no certainty that we would leave this fight unscathed, but there was one question that hung heavily within me, unshakable. "Julia." Maya's voice broke into my thoughts, forcing me to focus on her worried gaze. "We can't stay out here. They'll come for us." But then, something shifted. From behind the factory, I saw multiple dark figures emerging, their intentions clear and deliberate. My breath caught as dread settled in a revelation that chilled me to the bone. "We have to move, now," I insisted, recognizing the threat closing in on us, but as we turned to flee, the weight of our reality sank in deeper than the fire's destruction. That man's chilling words echoed in my mind, intertwining with the uncertainty of the new shadows, each flicker illuminating how precarious our fight truly was. We still had no idea who our real enemies were or how deep the conspiracy ran, and as we sprinted toward the darkness that awaited us, the fear gripped me, tightening its hold like an unwelcome reality. The fight for the truth had only just begun, and now, the stakes were higher than ever. Everything I thought I knew was about to unravel if we could even survive the night. The night air was thick with smoke and lingering threads of heat as we stumbled away from the factory's fiery wreckage. Each step felt heavy, laden with the weight of what had just transpired and the uncertainty that lay ahead. My heart pounded in rhythm with my panic as I grasped Maya's hand tightly, a lifeline against the chaos that threatened to engulf us again. Leo was shaken, his breath coming in ragged gasps, but there was a flicker of determination in his eyes that urged me to keep moving. The fear that gripped my chest was almost as suffocating as the smoke that clung to our clothes. It was a mixture of concern for Leo and the haunting realization that we were far from safe. "Where do we go?" Maya gasped, glancing over her shoulder. The shadows were shifting unnaturally, forming shapes that seemed to stalk us, and I could feel their malevolence behind every flicker of light. I searched my mind for an answer, desperate for a safe haven, a sanctuary away from this nightmare. "We need to find shelter. Somewhere to regroup and plan," I said, trying to sound composed. Suddenly, a siren wailed in the distance, a harsh reminder of the emergency services that would soon arrive. But they would be nowhere to protect us from the figures that emerged in the wake of our escape, figures whose presence cast a long, ominous shadow over me. "Julia." Leo's voice broke through my thoughts as he stumbled, nearly falling. I steadied him, locking eyes with Maya. "We can't let them catch us. They're not here to help." I nodded. "We'll head for the park. It's a few blocks away, lots of trees, places to hide." With a collective breath, we moved into the night, adrenaline driving our feet as we navigated the quiet streets. Every sound felt amplified, the crunch of gravel beneath our sneakers, the rustle of leaves stirred by the wind, each noise a reminder of how vulnerable we truly were. The moment we turned onto a darker alley, I felt a surge of urgency wash over me. "Stay close together," I called out, trying to mask the rising panic in my voice. The alley was narrow and shadowy, but it offered a certain cover from prying eyes. As we crept forward, my thoughts raced back to the confrontation with that man, his mocking words replaying over and over like a taunt. "You think you can save him? You think you can save yourselves?" Those haunting phrases echoed through my mind, a cruel mantra spiraling into an abyss of doubt. Suddenly, Maya halted, her eyes wide with fear. "Julia," she murmured, her voice shaking. "What if they know where we are? What if they find us?" "Then we fight," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "We're not done yet. We can't let them win." In that moment, Leo leaned against the cool brick wall, visibly struggling to catch his breath. I could see the fear etched into his features as we exchanged looks, an unspoken bond holding us together. "We have to find a way to turn this around," he said slowly, strength seeping back into his voice. "We can't let them dictate our story." Instinctively, I reached out to squeeze his hand, a small promise that we were all in this together, that we wouldn't let fear dictate our actions. Just then, a rustling sound emerged from the shadows of the alley, freezing us in place. My heart plummeted as I turned towards the noise, the atmosphere shifting with every passing second. A figure stepped into the dim light, tall, cloaked in darkness, yet unmistakably familiar. It was him. The man who had toyed with us, his chilling smirk cutting through the dim light like a dagger. "Expected you to be faster," he sneered, a cruel glint in his eyes. "But then again, I've seen it all before. Pretty little heroes fighting against the tide. Stay back," I shouted, stepping in front of Maya and Leo instinctively, my body a fragile shield. But instead of attacking, he raised his hands, a mocking gesture of surrender. "You really don't understand yet, do you? This is much larger than you three. Much larger than the flames that burned your precious factory." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Every fire has its purpose, he replied cryptically, tilting his head as if it pained him to reveal the truth. Some are ignited to cleanse, others to control. And those who think they can escape it well, they're often the ones who burn the hottest. What are you talking about? Maya shot back angrily, her hands balled into fists. Soon, you'll see, he said, a grin spreading across his lips as he faded back into the shadows, leaving behind a cold chill where warmth had once settled. A sick feeling twisted in my stomach, a dread of the unknown that hung in the air like the smoke from the fire. There was something larger at play, and the realization crept over me like creeping dread. As we stood frozen, contemplating his words, the echo of sirens grew closer, and urgency pressed against us once more. But just before we turned to run, Leo grabbed my arm, pulling me back. Julia, wait, he said, his eyes wild. What if we're supposed to follow him? I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, yet the pull of unanswered questions weighed heavily on my resolve. But before I could respond, the shadows coiled around us, reluctantly urging us toward an uncertain fate. What if the path was more treacherous than I anticipated? With the sirens echoing ever closer, I made a choice. We don't have time, I stammered. We have to go. Now. And as we turned to escape, a new dread settled within me, one that was fueled by the words left hanging in the air. The truth awaited us, and I was terrified of what it might reveal. The entrance to this dark game had opened wider than I ever imagined, and the final act of our story was just beginning to unfold. The sound of sirens bled into the night, swirling through the air like a sinister symphony, as we dashed from the alleyway's embrace. Every corner we turned was steeped in an unnerving silence that clashed against the chaos that had erupted only hours before. My heart thudded audibly against my chest, even as we raced for the park. The shadows seemed to linger, curving around us like hungry tendrils. As we entered the dimly lit expanse of the park, the moon framed our escape like a spotlight on fugitives. I scanned the area, looking for cover among the trees, my mind racing with Leo's revelation. The confrontation with that man had rattled me, his words carved out into my conviction. Were we really supposed to follow him? The thought twisted in my gut. Find a place to hide, I murmured, though I barely believed it myself. Maya's face was pale, and Leo's breath still came in harsh bursts. The weight of the night pressed down on us like a suffocating blanket that we ducked beneath a thick cluster of bushes, hearts pounding in unison. The branches provided cover, but I felt exposed all the same, catching my breath while the adrenaline surged with unsteady momentum. The rustle of leaves and distant sirens only heightened my sense of foreboding. What do we do now? Maya whispered, her voice tight with uncertainty. What was he trying to tell us? Before I could respond, Leo squeezed my hand again. This time, his grasp was reassuring, igniting a flicker of hope in the shadowy depths of dread. There has to be a way to expose what's really happening, he said, his voice steady. We need a plan, find the evidence we can't let them destroy. But how? Maya asked, her eyes wide and scared, tears glimmering under the moonlight. What if they're watching us even now? You're both right, I said, forcing confidence into my tone. But we can't let fear take control. We need to think, and fast. If the factory was a front for something larger, we need to find out what it was hiding. As if my words wove a spell of determination, the tension began to dissipate, if only a little. I could see sparks of resolve igniting in their eyes, and though the tremble of uncertainty still gripped at my heart, we were willing to fight. Together, suddenly, from the shadows of the park, a flicker of movement caught my eye. My breath hitched as a gentle rustling came from the bushes nearby. What now? Maya said, her voice trembling. Stay quiet, I urged, shifting my gaze toward the noise. Then, to my shock, a small dog bounded out from the underbrush, its fur disheveled and eyes wide with fear. It paused just in front of us, tail wagging uncertainly in our presence. What? Maya started, but Leo knelt, extending his hand toward the dog. "Hey there, little one. You lost?" he murmured, and for a moment, the heaviness of our situation slipped away just enough to share a smile. The dog cautiously approached Leo's outstretched palm, sniffing at him with curiosity. It gazed at us, the innocence in its eyes breaking the oppressive tension that had enveloped us moments before. I felt a flicker of warmth spread within me. The universe often found ways to show light in the darkest corners. As a sheer moment of connection entered the chaos of our lives, I turned to Maya, forcing a smile. Sometimes, comfort can come from the most unexpected places. Need to find your family, pup? Leo said gently to the dog, now settling beside him. It let out a soft whine as Leo scratched behind its ears, and for a fleeting moment, we were just three companions in a horrific story finding solace in this small creature's unwavering spirit, but once again, the sirens grew louder, snapping me back into reality. We should keep moving, I said, my heart pounding once more. We can't risk being found here. Reluctantly, Leo rose, leaving the dog behind as we pressed onward. I could feel anxious energy rising again, the worry coiling tight in my chest, threatening to unravel my resolve. Just then, an alarming thought pierced the haze of my mind. What if that man knew about the dog? What if he was somehow connected to this larger scheme? Instinctively, I glanced back, yearning to ensure that the little creature was still safe, but it was now lost amidst the swirling shadows and whispering leaves. The fleeting moment of solace we shared felt as fragile as glass. It left a yearning ache within me, heightened by the darkness ahead. That we settled deeper into the park, moving stealthily between the trees, and it was then I noticed it, the dim light flickering in the distance, smaller than the full glare of the factory flames yet unmistakably alive. Leo took hold of my arm, his eyes full of unspoken questions. "What is that?" he whispered harshly, pointing toward the light. "I'm not sure," I replied, the knot in my stomach twisting again. "But it could be a chance, a lead." We shared a charged glance, as the reality of what we were plunging into settled heavily in the air. The three of us were on the brink, teetering between fighting for our lives and succumbing to the unseen strings manipulating our fate. Taking a deep breath, I nodded, my resolve hardening. "Let us go see." As we approached cautiously, my instincts screamed caution, but an undeniable compulsion propelled me forward. Just as the light flickered brighter, an anxious bark broke the silence, not the frantic bark of the dog we had moments before, but a deeper, more resonant sound that pierced the stillness like a beacon of dread. With an overwhelming twist of fate, the scene unraveled before us, revealing figures huddled around a fire, vibrant smiles illuminating their faces, reminiscent of the warmth I had just felt minutes earlier. The unnerving familiarity of their exclamations overpowered the fear clenching my heart, throwing me off balance. Strong figures who had once been colleagues, friends who had once stood together in the face of adversity, but amongst the familiarity, there lingered an unspeakable dread, their gazes locking onto me with unsettling intensity. In that moment, every ounce of hope was drowned beneath waves of confusion and panic. What had I walked into? As the flickering flames cast an orange glow that flickered across their faces, it felt like stepping onto a stage where every soul had a role to play in a drama that was spiraling far beyond comprehension. I froze in place, 100 thoughts racing through my mind like a torrent of apprehension. This was not the sanctuary I had imagined. Leo squeezed my hand tighter, and I could feel the tension radiating between us like an electrical charge. "What do we do?" he whispered, his voice low and trembling. The fear in his tone mirrored my own uncertainty. The group around the fire turned fully towards us, and I recognized a few faces, former colleagues who had once stood next to me in board meetings, strategizing ways to ensure our factory remained the safest in the region. Now, they looked so different, as though the weight of our past decisions had morphed them into shadows of themselves, yet they still exuded a magnetic energy that tugged at my heart. It was then that I noticed one of them stepping forward, Angela, a vibrant spirit who had once rallied us through late nights and tight deadlines. Her face was smeared with dirt, and her clothes were frayed, but there was a spark in her eyes that both frightened and intrigued me. "Emma," she called, her voice breaking through the thick air like a shaft of light. "You made it. We were worried about you." "Worried?" I echoed, incredulity mingling with a rush of solace. "Worried about what?" What are you all doing here? We got out, she replied, urgency edging her words. But it wasn't easy. We found something, the truth about what is happening in our factory. You have to see it for yourself. Before I could object or question further, she turned, beckoning us deeper into the circle. Each step felt like sinking into quicksand, the weight of their collective gazes palpable. I stole a glance at Maya and Leo. They were both white-knuckling the situation, caught between loyalty and instinct. Should we trust these people? Angela motioned to a pile of documents on a tattered blanket next to the fire, papers sketching the outlines of deals and transactions that looked like time bombs waiting to go off. They are covering up everything. Safety violations, illegal dumping. It will ruin them, I interrupted, the words spilling from my lips before I could fully grasp the implications. But you, how? Why aren't you afraid? Her smile faltered slightly, replaced by the shadow of something deeper, something that felt all too familiar. We lost a lot, Emma. People we loved, people that might still be in danger. But what choice do we have? We can't stand by and let them keep this up. Each syllable she spoke was like a seed sinking into the fertile ground of my heart, already aching for change. Every second felt weighty and precarious, as I stood at the crossroad of fighting back or letting the past consume me like a tide threatening to engulf the shore. But just as the fire crackled and the warmth washed over me, a thunderous sound echoed in the distance, the sharp growl of engines revving, approaching rapidly. The sirens joined the fray, this time unmistakably closer. A chill swept over the gathering, their joyous expressions turned grim, fear washing over what moments ago had felt like newfound solidarity. They've found us. One of the figures shouted, drawing attention to the encroaching shadows of our pursuers. The camaraderie that had tethered me to these lost souls now teetered on the precipice of chaos. Emma! Angela shouted over the rising panic, urgency bleeding through her voice. You need to make a choice now. Stay with us and fight for the truth, or turn back into the darkness. We can't ensure your safety if you go back. Watching Leo and Maya's faces as the reality of our split potential laid bare before us hurt far more than the uncertainty. I saw fear, urgency, and a flame of hope battling it out within them. A part of me felt anchored to the group, to this revelation bubbling at our feet, but another whispered of safety, of uncertainty lurking in the maw of danger, with the engines roaring to life. And sirens howling in warning, I realized the depths of the choice that lay before us, an irrevocable chance to leap into the unknown or a step back into a life draped in the comfort of silence. Make your decision. Angela pleaded as the headlights sliced through the darkness, converging on the gathering like predators. That I looked between Leo and Maya, the storm swirling in my heart demanding an answer as the raw emotion coursed through us. And just as the world began to tilt beneath my feet, I opened my mouth to speak only to be interrupted by a flash of light illuminating a figure emerging from the shadows, someone I had never expected to see again. Emma, the voice breached the veil of chaos, leaving me breathless. The figure stepped closer, and every heartbeat dragged the weight of years behind them. You don't need to choose. I'm here to help you. My mind raced. Who was the stranger? What did they truly know? But as the revelation hit, a deep question clawed at the edges of my consciousness. In this web of secrets and safety, who could truly be trusted in the fight ahead? With every shred of hope hanging by a thread, I braced myself for what came next, a truth that could shatter or redeem everything I believed. As the figure stepped into the muted glow of the flickering firelight, I felt my heart pound disjointedly in my chest. There was something eerily familiar about them, something that rattled the walls of my memory. Jordan. I whispered, disbelief threading through my voice. The world around us blurred, and for a moment, nothing else mattered but the past crashing into the present, washing over me like a tidal wave. Is it really you? I could barely muster the words, the weight of so much unresolved floodgated through me. Not since that fateful day a week before I was fired had I last seen my old mentor and friend. We had fought side by side for ethical practices, only to be torn apart by the very shadows we were now thrust into. The loss of that connection rang loudly. Emma, he said, stepping closer with an urgency that felt electric. You need to understand what's at stake. I'm here because we don't have much time, they've been watching me. They know more than you think. I found answers, real answers. But the moment of reconnection felt steeped in confusion, shadows of doubt creeping into the edges of my newfound hope. What do you mean? How can we trust you? What about everything that happened? He shook his head, eyes grave. I understand your fears, but I came back to help. The factory, it serves a purpose beyond profit margins. It's a front for operations that no one can uncover, and what you discovered just scratches the surface. His gaze flickered toward the light in the distance where former colleagues huddled. You're caught in something much bigger, Emma. Lives are at stake, potentially hundreds, including those who once stood by you. I felt the world shift beneath my feet as the gravity of his words wrapped around me like a vice. Did Jordan truly know the extent of what I now faced? But the others, they're here for the same reason, right? He nodded, glancing around nervously. Yes, but none of how they ended up here can be explained without addressing the deeper truths. Emma, it's all intertwined. I can help prick the sores, but it requires a risk none of us can fully imagine. The urgency in his voice ignited a flicker of rebellion in my heart, battling against the ever-looming threat of fear. Behind us, the engines roared louder, growing closer, each rev a reminder that we were ensnared in the jaws of an unfolding chaos. The group around the fire observed us, and I could feel their anxious energy spiraling in a blend of hope and desperation. We need to go now. If they surround us, there may not be a way out, Angela urged, but the choice hung heavily before me, a fraught decision threatening to tear apart whatever fragile bonds held us together. What do we do, Emma? Maya's voice broke through, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty, mirroring my own turmoil. Can we trust him? Is this truly worth the risk? With time dwindling, I searched Jordan's face for answers I wasn't sure existed. Tell us. I demanded, desperation rising in my tone. We have to understand what we're up against. But before he could respond, the headlights washed over us, cutting through the shadows, drowning the warmth of the fire in a white-hot flood that froze the moment. Now! Leo shouted, urgency embedding itself into his voice as he instinctively grabbed Maya's hand. The siren sounded, a deafening howl that shook the very ground beneath us. Without warning, figures emerged from the darkness, silhouettes armed with more than threats, armed with an intent to silence. Jordan stepped forward, positioning himself in front of us, his eyes steely with determination. I'll buy you time. You need to go head north through the park. I'll stall them. No. I can't leave you. I protested, my heart plummeting. You don't have to, it's dangerous. With resolve, he shook his head. Your fight is more important than you think. Don't look back, trust that everything will align if you push through. My pulse quickened, torn between loyalty and the knowledge that I had to choose survival realistically, for the others and for me. Maya tightened her grip on my arm, her breath coming in hurried bursts. We can't let you do this alone. The time for decisions is over. Jordan commanded, his expression shifting as the shadows deepened. Go now. I felt the tether of our connection unravel as we turned and ran, the adrenaline surging and lightening my path, charging me through the park that had moments ago held only the flickering warmth of camaraderie. The haunting shadows that clawed at our heels urged me forward, urging me to forge ahead into a destiny I could not wholly comprehend, and as we raced through the cover of trees, the weight of uncertainty clouding my heart, a sudden thought struck me deeply. I had a choice. I could decide to either succumb to fear or to rise against it, fuel the fire that dwelled within. The darkness behind us pulsed as the roar of the company's cold wrath grew louder, swallowing the sense of safety. Yet, as we charged deeper into the woods, a spark ignited again, a rebellion stirring anew. If there was any hope remaining, it lay beyond this night. The truth was waiting, buried in the depths under corporate greed, and it was time to expose it. That we raced onward until the shouts faded into the distance, becoming nothing more than echoes, a prelude of the resistance that would ensue. The night wrapped around us like a shroud, but with each step, I felt lighter, the bonds of fear unraveling behind me, giving way to the promise of change. In that moment, enlightenment washed over me like a refreshing breath. There would be no more running, and at that moment, I felt a resolve swell in my heart. We were fighters, seekers of truths, and it was time to unleash our voices not as mere survivors, but as warriors standing in defiance of every shadow lurking in the depths that lie in the face of chaos. I remembered what my father had taught me long ago. Lives are priceless. Justice is not merely a destination, it's a relentless journey, and so we ran, unyielding, into the dark, stepping firmly toward the light of truth. As I sprinted through the trees, I clenched my fists tightly, the fire of determination roaring within my chest, a heady promise to myself, my friends, and the world beyond. The truth would not just be found, it would be fought for, and together, we would mend the fractures that threatened to tear us apart. Somewhere beneath the weight of uncertainty and fear, I felt a twinkle of hope waver, a spark illuminating an otherwise chaotic night. We would not surrender our lives to the darkness. We would ignite a flame that would burn brighter than we imagined. There in that moment, I chuckled softly, reflecting on how I never truly anticipated how far this journey would take me. But now, it was clear. I was alive, and I was ready to fight, and thus, with that spark of determination, the future waited to unfold.